Subscribe to Mantold for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. I had just signed the papers to donate my daughter's heart when the phone rang. The screen lit up with a name I thought I'd never see again. Claire, the woman who walked out on me and our daughter 2 years ago, without a single word. I froze in the hospital hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered against the glass of the ICU room where Lily lay, motionless, pale, her chest rising and falling only because of the ventilator counting down her last breaths. I answered. Her voice trembled. "Can you ever forgive me?" I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because, in that moment, I couldn't feel anything at all. Like every nerve in me had gone numb. I just stared through the glass, where Lily still lay, so small, like a raindrop dissolving in winter. I remembered how she squeezed my hand a few days ago and whispered, "Daddy, if I don't make it, give my heart to a kid who never got to run and play." I nodded, even though my throat closed up. And now, Claire's asking about forgiveness. Funny, isn't it? She left when I lost my job, vanished when Lily first burned up with fever in the ER. And now, when our little girl is gone, she wants to know if I'll forgive her. I pressed the phone to my ear and said, voice hoarse, "The one you should be asking will never hear it." Then I hung up. No tears, no shaking, just a hollow in my chest, like something had been ripped out and didn't even leave a name behind. Through the glass, the doctors were getting ready for surgery. I stood there, ink from the donor form still staining my palm, like a mark that would never fade. A nurse walked past, glanced at me with quiet sympathy, and said, "Your daughter, she's an angel. Her heart will save another child." I nodded, but said nothing, because in that moment, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. A father, a man who'd been left behind, or just a silent shadow in a hospital corridor. They say forgiveness brings peace. But what does peace even mean when forgiveness comes after a child's death? My name is Harrison. I'm 37. I used to believe that if I just loved hard enough, stayed patient enough, then maybe my family wouldn't fall apart. But love, I've learned, isn't enough to make someone stay when they've already left you in their heart. I once lived in a quiet suburb, rows of wooden-roofed houses, white fences, and sun-drenched mornings. I was a software engineer at a mid-sized firm. It paid the bills. My wife, Claire, taught yoga at a small studio a few blocks from home. And our daughter, Lily, she was our little angel. Soft brown hair, a laugh that rang like wind chimes. We had our routine. Each morning, I'd make coffee. Claire fixed breakfast. Lily would play with her toast, grinning as she smeared strawberry jam all over her shirt. Our fridge was covered in her doodles, castles, princesses, and drawings of the three of us holding hands under a sky full of hearts. Back then, I thought, this is happiness. Then the pandemic hit. My company downsized. I lost my job. Claire had to stop teaching. Her studio shut down. Breakfasts lost their jam and laughter. They were replaced by sighs, bills piling up, and arguments spoken in low voices behind closed doors. I did what I could. Drove for delivery apps, took freelance gigs, worked nights so Claire could rest. But maybe, in her eyes, I stopped being the man she could lean on. She started coming home late. Her phone was always locked. Some nights, I'd be up putting Lily to bed while Claire lay turned away from me, clutching her phone under the covers. I never asked, because I was scared of the answer. Then, one rainy night, after Lily had fallen asleep, I walked into the living room and found Claire packing a suitcase. I stood there, speechless. She didn't cry, didn't look at me, didn't kiss her daughter goodbye. She just said, "I'm tired, Harrison. I need a different life. I can't breathe here anymore." The next morning, Lily woke up and asked, "Where's Mommy? Did she go buy ice cream?" I bent down to tie her shoelaces. Yeah, she went to get ice cream. Might take her a while. From that day on, I wasn't Harrison, the man of the house. I was a jobless single dad, living in a run-down apartment, with peeling paint on the ceiling and a heater that screamed every time the temperature dropped below 50. It was just me and Lily. The first few weeks after Claire left, I barely knew how to function. I used to handle the finances, but I'd never handled everything. I learned how to tie Lily's hair, fumbled so badly she'd laugh and pat my shoulder like a grown-up. "It's okay, Daddy. Ugly hair is fun too." I couldn't cook. The eggs were burnt, the rice always mushy. But every night, Lily clapped and said it was delicious, like I was a five-star chef. She had a tender heart and eyes that saw right through me. Whenever she caught me staring at bills in silence, she'd pull my hand, blast music, and dance around the room, like she was reminding me, there's still joy. We're a little poor, but that's okay. As long as we have each other, right, Daddy? I'd smile. But my throat would tighten every time. I took on whatever jobs I could find. Editing documents, data entry, odd errands. I even considered selling blood at one point. Some nights I worked till 3 a.m., stumbling from exhaustion. Once, I nearly collapsed in the street, juggling food deliveries and deadlines. But when I remembered Lily's cough syrup was running low, I pushed through. I used to have dozens of friends at work, always calling, inviting me for beers, talking startups and life goals. But after I became the unemployed single dad, no one called anymore. Not a single message to check in. Only Lily never forgot me. Every night, she'd drag her blanket onto the floor to sleep next to me. Daddy must be cold all alone. Can I sleep with you? I didn't stop her. And I never told her the truth, that without her beside me, I couldn't sleep at all. Lily never asked why her mom never called. Never came back. Maybe she knew. Or maybe she was just scared of the answer. On the bedroom wall, I taped a drawing she made. The two of us walking across a rainbow, surrounded by flowers, sunshine, and a cat in a dress. Up top, in messy crayon letters, she wrote, I love Daddy the most in the world. I don't know if I've been a good father. I couldn't buy her new dolls. Couldn't take her on trips. But I could sing to her when she had a fever, tell bedtime stories, and hold her hand every night as she slept. In a world that took everything from me, Lily was all I had left. And I promised myself, no matter what happened, I'd protect her with whatever was left of me, even if that meant giving up me. It started with a cough. On a Monday morning, just as I finished making Lily her cup of cocoa. At first, I thought it was just a cold. Kids get sick when the seasons change. I boiled ginger, mixed in some honey, and told her to drink up. She made a face. Tastes worse than those math problems I hate. I chuckled, but the smile barely formed before the worry crept in. By day 2, she had a low-grade fever. Lily was tired, didn't want to play with her paper dolls, or draw like she usually did. I kept her home, made porridge, ordered meds. But that night, her breathing changed. Shallow, strained, like each breath took everything she had. I held her all night, didn't dare close my eyes. The next morning, I carried her to the local clinic. The doctor glanced at her and said quickly, looks like the flu. Take her home, let her rest. Keep an eye on her. I nodded, but my gut told me something wasn't right. It couldn't just be the flu. That third night, she started dry heaving, then passed out mid-sentence. Her eyes were sunken, skin pale, lips cracked and dry. I didn't wait. I scooped her up and hailed a cab to the city hospital. The kind I knew I couldn't afford, but had to try anyway. At the ER, a nurse named Marcy, maybe in her 30s, placed a hand gently on my shoulder after checking Lily. She looks worn out, but don't worry too much. Might just be a nasty infection. Lots of kids are catching that these days. I nodded, forced a smile, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. While we waited for her blood work, I took Lily outside, to a small courtyard behind the hospital, where leafless trees cast shadows over worn benches. You cold? I asked. She shook her head weakly, eyes fixed on the dull gray sky. I like this color. It's gonna rain, huh, Daddy? I squeezed her hand. My heart pounded for reasons I didn't understand. That afternoon, they called me into a private room. On the table, a thick stack of medical charts. The monitor showed red lines I couldn't make sense of. The doctor, an older man with a calm voice that somehow made it all scarier, said, "We've found a mass in Lily's brain. Central region. Can't say yet if it's benign or malignant. We'll need to biopsy." I didn't understand. My ears rang. The air felt sucked out of the room. "We'll keep her here for monitoring. You're the only guardian, right?" I nodded. Couldn't get a word out. Back in her room, Lily was already hooked up to fluids. She lay still, her skin pale, her tiny hands cold as ice. I sat beside her, opened her favorite book, Sleeping Beauty, and started reading, voice trembling. Once upon a time, there was a brave little princess. She blinked, then smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'm not going to sleep long." I smiled back, but my tears had already fallen onto the cover of the book. That night, I stayed by her bedside, frozen. The IV beeped rhythmically. The room was stark white, so cold her fingertips were turning blue. I gently stroked her hair, the same messy hair that used to bounce while she danced in our kitchen. Her eyes half shut, lips mumbling as if dreaming. "Daddy, are we going home tomorrow?" I nodded, lips pressed tight. But inside, I felt something break. I walked out into the hallway, leaned against the wall, and closed my eyes. The pain didn't have a name. It wasn't in my heart or my head. It spread everywhere, like someone was crushing me, piece by piece, with bare hands. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts. Her name was still there, Claire. I'd thought about deleting it so many times, never had the strength to do it. I took a deep breath and called. It rang for a long time. Then, a familiar voice, distant now, like it came from another life. "Hello," I choked. "Claire, it's me." Silence. Then softly, "What's going on?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Lily's in the hospital. Brain tumor. They need to biopsy. Might need radiation." "Harrison, I'm in Seattle. I just started a new job. I can't." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Let out a dry laugh. "Yeah," I figured. It wasn't the first time I heard that. But this time, it hit different. Straight to the chest, where a father's heart was screaming, but no one could hear. I ended the call, not out of anger, but because I knew if I listened to one more word, I'd fall apart completely. Back in the room, Lily was asleep. Her face looked drained. That thin blanket couldn't keep out the cold, and it sure as hell couldn't keep it out of my world. I sat down, and for the first time in years, I broke. No pride, no pretending. I curled into myself, head on my knees, hands covering my face. The sobs came, raw and loud, before I could even stop them. I used to think I was strong. Strong enough to be a father. Strong enough to carry it all. But now, beside my daughter's hospital bed, I was just a broken boy who couldn't save the one person he loved most. If only I'd taken her to the doctor sooner. If only I'd been better at my job. If only I hadn't tried so hard to look okay, so no one would know I was drowning. I held it together for too long. So long that no one thought I needed anyone anymore. The next morning, the doctor handed me the results. High risk of malignancy. Lily would need a biopsy surgery, close monitoring, and if worse, long-term treatment. My head spun. Out in the hallway, I mentally counted the cash I had left, then called every freelance contact I had, begging for early payments. I listed my laptop for sale, my only tool for work, just to cover the deposit for her first surgery. That night, I laid on the cold floor next to her bed. I didn't dare sleep. Every few minutes, I'd reach up, just to check she was still breathing. Her little hand found mine, unconsciously. I gripped it tight. Then she whispered, "Maybe in a dream, maybe not. I couldn't tell. I'm not scared. 'Cause I've got you, Daddy." That one sentence pulled me out of the dark. I sat up, looked at her frail little body lying there, and swore with every bit of me, even if I have to sell what's left of my life, even if Claire's gone, even if no one stands by me, even if I'm just a broke, unemployed single dad, if she still believes in me, I will not let her down. I started living like a machine. By day, I ran around the hospital, checkups, doctor meetings, signing off prescriptions. At night, I tracked Lily's meds, wiped her down, lulled her to sleep. Once she was out, I opened my laptop to take on small jobs, data entry, translating whatever documents I could find. One night, after finishing a spreadsheet for a client, I stood up to wash my face. But after just a few steps, the world around me spun. I grabbed the nearest wall, stayed still until my heartbeat settled back into place. I looked down at my shaking legs, legs that once carried Lily through stormy days without fail. Now, they were betraying me. I took a deep breath, shook it off, and returned to work. If a nurse saw me like that, they'd force me to get checked. But I didn't have the time, and definitely not the money, to be a patient too. After the biopsy, Lily was moved to the special care unit. We were only allowed to visit twice a day, less than an hour each time. Outside those hours, I sat in the hallway, right by the only available power outlet, charging my phone and working. That spot became mine. One time, another father asked if he could sit there. I smiled and gave it up, sliding over to the cold stairs. My back ached, but my eyes stayed locked on the screen. Once I passed out mid-typing. My head hit the table. The sound jolted me awake. A doctor walking by leaned in and asked, "You okay?" I sat up, forced a smile. "I'm fine. I'm used to it." That sentence, "I'm used to it," was the lie I'd been telling myself for weeks. The biopsy results came back. Malignant signs. Chemo needed, immediately. I didn't ask questions, just quietly signed the forms. Because I knew, if I started talking, I wouldn't be able to stop. I'd break down right there in the clinic. And I couldn't let anyone see me like that. I picked up more work. A data processing company gave me night shifts, paid by the hour. Every hour was another shot at hope. I worked until 3 a.m., slept on the hospital floor, my jacket rolled up as a pillow, my back to the wall. When Lily returned to a regular room, I slept near her bed, close enough to reach her hand if she stirred. One night, Lily woke up halfway through. She looked at me and whispered, "Daddy, why are your eyes so red?" I flinched, turned away. "I'm just a little sleepy, that's all." She smiled faintly, voice thin as paper. "Then go sleep, Daddy. I'll keep watch." I looked back, saw her eyelids still heavy with meds, hands too weak to even lift her blanket. And yet, she still worried about me. In that moment, I knew, even if I fell apart, I couldn't afford to fall. I used to think being a man meant being strong. No complaints. No tears. But now, under the harsh hospital lights, the IV beeping in rhythm, the smell of antiseptic stinging my nose, I was no longer some strong father I tried to be. I was just a drained soul. A man who hadn't slept properly in 7 nights, surviving on instant noodles made with water from the shared dispenser, living on one hope, that Lily would live. I never knew exhaustion could have such a clear face. One night, while washing up in the hospital restroom, I caught my reflection and didn't recognize him. Sunken cheeks, patchy stubble, dark circles like ink stains under my eyes. I reached out and touched my own face, and for a second, I wanted to ask the mirror, "Who are you?" I bent down, splashed cold water over my face, as if I could scrub off whatever version of me had been crushed by fatigue and fear. Then the hospital speaker blared, "Patient Lily Thompson, room 207. Immediate transfer required." My heart cracked wide open. I bolted through the hallway, bumping into people without even feeling it. In the room, 2 doctors were holding Lily down. She was trembling slightly, face pale. A new breathing tube was being fitted. Drug reaction. Irregular heartbeat. Prep for intensive support. They pushed me out. The door shut behind me. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass and whispered, trembling, "Please, someone, don't take her from me." Lily made it through the crisis. But the doctor said, "Her body's weaker than we expected. Low chemo response." I felt my heart sink. Not from surprise, but because I was starting to fear how familiar bad news had become. I returned to the hallway, sank to the floor. Fluorescent light drained the last color from the world. I clutched my head and muttered, for the first time ever, "I can't take this anymore." My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, scrolled down the contact list, stopped at one name, Claire. Didn't call, just stared. And in my mind, one thought kept looping, if only. Right then, a shadow stopped in front of me. I looked up, eyes blurry, barely processing. It was Claire. Long coat, small suitcase. Her face looked as worn as mine did in that mirror. I took the red-eye flight. I know I was wrong not to come sooner. I didn't respond, didn't lash out, didn't blame. I'd gone way past the point of anger. She sat beside me. We didn't speak, just sat. Our breaths, the only sound between muffled intercom announcements. "Is Lily okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. She just made it through a bad episode. She lowered her head. A tear slipped down. "You've done more than I ever thought one man could carry." I didn't need praise. Didn't need forgiveness. What I needed was someone to sit beside me right now. That night, Claire took the next shift. For the first time in weeks, I slept more than 3 hours. No jerking awake. No checking the clock. The next morning, I woke to see Claire using a warm cloth to wash Lily's hair. Lily smiled faintly, eyes brimming. "Mom, is that really you? You're not leaving again, are you?" Claire didn't answer. She just held her tight. I turned away, pretending to clean the table, just to hide everything welling up. I didn't step in. I just stood by the door and smiled. Not because everything was okay, but because, after everything, I was still standing. In the days that followed, it felt like I could finally breathe after drowning for so long. Claire stayed. She didn't say much, made no promises, but her presence softened the edges of everything. We took turns. I did the night shifts. She handled the days. I slept more. Sometimes I even dreamed. And best of all, I saw Lily smile again. Mom's jokes aren't funny, Dad, but I laugh anyway, so she feels better. I watched the two of them, a scene I thought I'd never witness again. My heart warmed, but also trembled. Trembled at the thought that this might just be a beautiful dream with an expiration date. That afternoon, Lily was sound asleep. Claire and I sat on the fourth-floor balcony, plastic chairs, old and cracked. We didn't talk at first, just watched the slow stream of people below the hospital courtyard. Then Claire broke the silence. "I'm sorry for leaving. I was scared. I didn't feel like I was strong enough to be a mom." I nodded. I messed up too. I got so focused on making money, I forgot how to keep a family together. No arguing, no blaming. Just two people, survivors of the same earthquake. After a while I asked, "What now?" Claire looked toward Lily's window, then said slowly, "I'll stay until she's discharged." That was it. No more, no less. No, let's start over. No, maybe we can try again. Just until Lily's discharged. I didn't push, because I understood. Some people come back, not out of love, but out of guilt, or simply because they couldn't abandon you completely. That night, while Claire went out to get groceries, I charged her phone. It lit up, fully charged. But a message popped up. "You okay? I'm here if you need me." I didn't mean to read it, but my finger tapped before I could stop it. Sender, Ryan. Her old coworker, the one she once said was just a friend. My throat went dry. I scrolled slowly. Older messages appeared. "I wish you hadn't gone back to Harrison that day. You deserve a life without baggage. If it gets too much, come to Seattle. I'll be waiting." Nothing vulgar, but each word cut like a blade. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Claire wanted to leave me, or the fact that I had started to hope she might stay. I held the phone, thought about deleting the whole thread, thought about yelling, doing something to vent the storm inside me, but I didn't. Not because I forgave her, not because I was noble, but because I was tired, and Lily didn't need another storm from her parents. I placed Claire's phone back on the table, didn't delete, didn't confront her, didn't ask, "What is this?" Because I knew some questions don't need answers, and some truths don't need to be spoken aloud. I turned away, sat quietly in the chair, hands folded. Night fell beyond the glass. The curtain danced in the wind, shadows flickering on the ceiling like silent waves. Not everyone who comes back comes to stay. I once naively believed in miracles, that if we just held on through the storm, a family could be whole again. But I forgot. Love isn't pain relief, and not everyone can survive the aftershocks. The next morning, Claire wheeled Lily into the hallway for a walk. Lily beamed beneath her mask. "Daddy, I want to draw a picture of the three of us in front of our house. You're holding me. Mommy's beside us." I nodded. "Draw it, sweetie." I'll hold the paper. And I held it tight, as if letting go would cause everything to shatter. That night, I quietly packed. Not much. A few shirts, some notebooks, Lily's old teddy bear. I left a folded note on the table. "You don't owe me an explanation. Thank you for coming back when she needed her mom. As for us, I'll fold that chapter up and keep it to myself. Don't let her lose any more peace." I stepped out the door. Claire stood by the hallway wall, red-eyed, said nothing. Didn't stop me, just watched. I gave her a small nod. No blame, no anger, but also no turning back. I walked away, heavy, like I carried stones, but each step firm, because for the first time, I chose peace over holding on. I rented a small room near the hospital. Not far, but far enough to set the right distance. Morning drop-offs with food, evening visits. Still held her, still told stories, but always with the same line. Daddy's working a night shift. Claire never asked. I never explained. Between us, a silence that wasn't hostile, but held nothing more to say. In Lily's final week at the hospital, she finished her drawing. I taped it to the wall of my little room. 3 of us standing in front of the house, me holding Lily, Claire beside us. But in the drawing, my hands were empty. I stared at it for a long time, then smiled gently. She got it right. Not because I had nothing left, but because I'd learned how to let go. One night, Claire texted. She asked today why Daddy doesn't tell bedtime stories anymore. I told her, "You're working nights." She nodded, then drew a star beside you. I read the message, didn't reply, just looked up, out the window. I'm still here, not in the family portrait anymore, but still shining, like a quiet star beside my daughter. I used to think letting go was the most painful part, but it's not. What hurts more is living through the days after, still breathing, still moving, but not knowing what you're living for. My little rented room sat on the second floor of an old building. Each morning, I made coffee with a dented kettle, opened the window, and watched the courtyard below. A young woman sketching quietly, an old man jogging with his chubby dog. Other lives, still in motion. And I stood still, like time only passed for people who didn't carry cracks in their chest. 2 weeks later, Lily was discharged. Claire took her to her mother's house, a quiet place near a park where the morning light was soft. I didn't go to see them off. Didn't call. Just received a few photos Claire sent. Lily standing in the sun, her thinning hair like fresh grass after rain, holding balloons, smiling as if she never knew what pain was. I looked at the photo and nodded to myself. As long as you're still smiling, even if not because of me. I got my old job back, but in a different role. No management, no meetings, just warehouse work, lifting, loading, inventory. Not as a punishment, but because I had nothing left to prove to anyone. I needed a place where no one asked about family. No one asked, "How's little Lily?" No one said, "How are you and your wife doing?" I just needed silence. Needed to keep my head down. To feel tired in a way that made sense. Every night, I wrote Lily letters. Never sent them. Just wrote. With a pencil. On school notebook paper. Then tucked them into a wooden box beneath my bed. "Sweetheart, today I saw a little girl wearing a scarf like yours at the supermarket. I almost called out your name. I miss you. So much that even hearing a little girl laugh makes my chest ache." No one needed to read them. No reply expected. Writing was how I stitched the spaces I didn't know how else to fill. One afternoon, a message from Claire popped up. "This Saturday, Lily has a performance at the park near home. If you want to come, she'd be happy." I stared at that message, read it again and again, not because I hesitated, but because I was afraid. If she runs to me, I might not have the strength to let her go again. I didn't reply, just sighed and scribbled on a sticky note, "Saturday, 3 p.m." I arrived at the park half an hour early, wore a pressed shirt, shaved, a dab of old cologne, not to impress, just to not look like a man who had lost his family. I stood back, behind the trees, where I could see the small wooden stage and rows of white plastic chairs. I spotted Claire first, beige dress, hair tied low, thinner, but her eyes were gentler. Then Lily walked out, blue dress, pink bow, little tambourine in hand. Her hair was still sparse, but caught the sunlight. Dark eyes, pink lips, chubby cheeks returning. I gripped the back of the bench. My heart thumped, not from nerves, but from longing. She's bigger now, but still small enough that all I want is to hold her and shield the whole sky for her. Lily looked around, then stopped. Her eyes found me. I nodded. She didn't smile, didn't wave, but she lifted her tambourine and gave it a light shake. Once, then twice, and turned away. I laughed, silently. She didn't run to me, but she saw me and chose to say hello, in a way only we understand. The show ended. Kids ran down. Parents rushed in with cameras. I turned, ready to leave. "Daddy." I froze. Turned around. Lily was running, holding her bow in place, eyes sparkling. Her smile only half-formed, as if she was afraid that if she smiled too wide, I might disappear. I knelt down. She stopped. Didn't jump into my arms. Just stood there, close enough to hear each other's heartbeat. "Mom said you've been working night shifts, but you remembered today." I swallowed hard. I never forget the things that matter most. She smiled, then handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it. Another drawing. The three of us again. But this time, I was standing behind them, one arm raised, shielding them from the sun. I asked, "Why's Daddy standing at the back, blocking the sun?" Lily smiled and tilted her head. "You don't need to carry me anymore, because now I know you're always close by." I didn't say anything, just pulled her gently into my arms. Not too tight, not shaking, just enough so she'd know I was still here, and always would be. I came back to my little room after the show that day, took off my shirt, hung it on the hook, opened the wooden box under the bed, the one holding all the letters I never sent. I added one more, just one line. Today, the sunlight didn't feel as harsh as it used to. Since that day, I didn't visit Claire's place much anymore. Not because I was stepping back, but because I knew Lily no longer needed me right there to feel loved. She still texts me, clumsy wording, misplaced commas everywhere, but always ending with, "I love you, Dad." I read those messages over and over, as if one day she might forget to write it. I kept working at the warehouse, lived simply, ate better, sometimes went for walks in the evening, not for health reasons, but because I liked seeing my shadow stretch long on the sidewalk at sunset. It reminded me, even if no one stood beside me every day, I was still part of this world. No one claps for me. No one calls me a hero. No one knows I once walked away from a marriage I didn't want to lose. But I know I made the right choice. One time, I ran into Claire at the supermarket. We both reached for the same bottle of soy sauce. She smiled. "You still use this one?" I smiled back. "Yeah. You picked it back then. Cheap, but good." We didn't say anything else. But in that moment, our eyes held no more distance, no resentment, no regret. Just two people who once loved, once broke, and once held the same little heart through the storm. Sometimes I wonder, if someone asked me, "Have you forgiven her?" I'd probably say, "I don't know." Because forgiveness isn't some finish line you cross and forget. Forgiveness is waking up each day and choosing to keep walking without carrying knives in your chest. There are still days I dream of Claire leaving, or of Lily crying, but when I wake up, I know I'm no longer angry. I just remember, and sometimes just remembering, without hurting, is already a big step toward being kind to yourself. I don't have a family like I used to. No cozy home at night, no sound of laughter bouncing from the kitchen, but I have a box of letters under my bed, a crayon drawing of 3 people in the sun, and a little girl who still calls me Dad, in a voice as clear as a Monday morning. I don't need anything more, because sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's knowing you once loved, and still do, even when everything has slipped through your hands.